This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. States have been following Tennessee's lead when it became the first in the nation to offer free state college to its residents. Coming up, we learn more about Connecticut's program to make community colleges debt-free. Lawmakers approved the plan this past legislative session, but it's not a done deal yet. We'll explain. First, Connecticut, like many states, has seen community college enrollment drop. Fewer students and fewer state dollars has led the Board of Regents to adopt a plan to consolidate the system, but it hasn't been met with widespread approval. We'll hear from some faculty and students just ahead. Now, Mark Ojakian is back to update us on how the plan is moving forward. He's the president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System. You can join us, 860-275-7266. As always, find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Mark Ojakian, welcome back to the show.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we talk about the consolidation plan, which again is still waiting on approval from the accrediting agency, we really wanted to focus first on this new budget that was approved by the Board of Regents, I think a couple of weeks ago. I understand it's a nearly $1.3 billion budget. We're talking a lot about community colleges today, but your system also handles the state university system as well. So we're wondering, with the $1.3 billion budget, what does that mean exactly for the university system first and then for the community colleges?
Well, thank you for the question. I think the board adopted a budget understanding that we're still in very difficult financial straits. For the universities, it's going to mean basically they won't have to draw down on their reserves to the extent that we originally thought they were going to have to do. We raised tuition, as you know, last year by a marginal amount, although
How much again?
Last year it was 4% for the universities. And I believe that is going to mean an increase for students and their families, but we thought it was a responsible increase given the state of the fiscal condition that we find ourselves in. So the universities are in a much better place than the community colleges. With the community colleges and the budget that was adopted, we still have to cut $12 million from the community colleges as a whole. The board has allowed up to $8 million from reserves to be used to cover the budget gap for next year, which will leave us with about, I think it's $29 million left in reserves. And we're going to need to use those reserves over the next couple of years until you see the final results of the Students First consolidation finally kick in. So we have a plan for long-term sustainability, but in the short term, we're going to have to cut $12 million from the community colleges.
When we think about $12 million, what does that mean? Does it mean personnel?
Well, it mainly means personnel. We're going to have to look at ways that we can share services across the institutions, which is a reason we put our regional model in place. We're going to have to look at ways that we can scale back on some contracts we currently have at the colleges. But we're going to have to look at not filling certain positions. But the direction that we've given to campuses has been that we want to make sure that no student-facing services or no faculty and instructors are impacted by the budget cuts. So we're going to have to find budget cuts elsewhere.
When students and faculty, state residents hear about the issues with funding as well as efforts to consolidate, also hearing that you're now the system now needs to find $12.5 million in cuts. I mean, why should someone enroll in a state university or community college system? What is in it for them?
Well, I think, first of all, if you're talking about the community colleges, it's one of the best educational opportunities for most residents of Connecticut. High quality, low cost educational opportunities. And for example, if you enroll in a community college, transfer to one of the state universities in one of the programs of study where we have seamless transfer, which is now 26, you will save $12,000 over the course of that study. So it's a huge savings option for students, especially at a time when we're talking about insurmountable student debt. Now, what we are trying to do as we move forward on our Students First initiative is to change the operating model to make our model more welcoming to students, so that students will have an opportunity to complete their education in a period of time where they don't have to take out loans or face exorbitant debt. Right now our completion rates for first-time full-time students are 16%. How is that in any universe a good result?
So why is that? If you're talking about a good quality education, also cost savings, why aren't students completing?
Students aren't completing for a number of reasons. We don't have enough resources currently devoted on our campuses to coaching, to advising, to mentoring, so that students are given the tools they need to be able to succeed. So students either stay a long period of time to complete an associate's degree, or they drop out. And this disproportionately affects students of color. So part of our effort is to change the model, to provide more resources on the campus to advisors and coaches, student financial aid personnel, student success center personnel. We want to be able to keep the libraries open more often. But the education that they receive is first rate. And I'm a big believer that it's one of the hidden gems in the state of Connecticut. You're going to see us doing a lot more marketing on the community colleges from here, through the next couple of years. And I think students will find that the quality and the cost are things that will drive them to the community colleges. We're very fortunate to have our community colleges in Connecticut.
You're talking a lot about the positives and the advantages of being a student, but when you say there's a 16% completion rate, how does Connecticut compare to other New England community college systems in terms of completion?
Well, community college systems throughout New England are having challenges in terms of completion. And there's a number of reasons for that. Part of it I just talked about, but the other is that many of our students who go to community colleges have other challenges they need to overcome to stay in school. They have children, they work, they need transportation. Many of them need food. And so we need to provide a holistic approach to our educational component, including wraparound services for our students. We're doing a better job, but we're not where we need to be. So one of the initiatives we're working on, whether it's guided pathways or achieving the dream or these national models that we're working on, are intended to improve our completion rates and provide more support to the student when they're in school, so they understand how to go from A to B and what they need to do to complete.
You're hearing Mark Ojakian, president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System here on Where We Live. You can join us, 860-275-7266. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. You mentioned achieving the dream. This is something that I believe all Connecticut community colleges are now part of. What is that exactly?
Well, achieving the dream is a national model of providing advising and wraparound service design activities to each of the colleges. It's a coaching-based model, best practices around the country to be able to help each institution better assist students in navigating through their educational opportunities. We at the system are paying for each of our colleges to be part of this effort. We just had a system-wide meeting recently with all of the colleges and all of the coaches, and there's so much excitement around this activity. And I think once we get a little further down the road, you're going to see the fruits of the labor pay off in terms of our completion rates.
When you talk about this initiative, what is the cost to the state of Connecticut to be part of this?
Well, the cost in total is about $750,000 for all 12 community colleges to participate in this. We are doing our best to control our costs, but at the same time, if we're going to engage in these efforts to improve student success and make sure that our students have the tools they need to succeed in life, we're going to have to spend money to do that. As you know, nothing is free. And so we have provided an opportunity for all of our colleges to participate. It's a cost of about $65,000 per campus. And campuses are very excited about this effort.
You can join us 860-275-7266. Are you a student at one of Connecticut's 12 community colleges or state universities? What do you think about the leadership of Mark Ojakian as president of this higher ed system as it looks to consolidate to try to save money but also provide a quality education? We want to hear from you. Again, 860-275-7266. Eddie's calling from Norwich. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. My name is Edie Willette. I'm the Division Director of Nursing and Allied Health at Three Rivers Community College. I'd like to ask Mark to speak to his comment that he just made about the $12 million that needs to be saved at community colleges, and him saying that it would not impact student services and instruction, because I'm going to read 10 items that we just implemented yesterday. The director of admissions the position is being suspended for a search. We are not going to hire an assistant director of career services. The existing part-time services in student services are being eliminated. No contracts are being renewed. I am not able to hire a nursing lab coordinator. All positions eliminated positions in the Welcome Center. We have our director of IT position that's not being replaced, to management, and so on and so on. So I'd like him to speak to that, and I'd also like him to speak to the fact that if we cut half of the money that is being spent on the community college management at the CSCU office, we wouldn't have to save any money at the community colleges. And one more thing, while I have Mark here, I've tried to reach out to him several times, and he's never gotten back to me, so I'm glad I have him on the air.
Well, Edie, quickly, so we can have Mark Ojakian answer your question.
There are other ways to save money, and you never, ever asked. Never.
Thank you, Edie, for your call. Let's start first with the positions that she mentioned that are being cut, and questions about how services to students will not be impacted when you have personnel decisions being made.
Well, first of all, this is the first that I'm hearing of the proposed cuts at Three Rivers. There's a process in place where by August 1st, institutions are supposed to submit plans to us to take a look at, and part of our approach has been since July 1st, working with our regional presidents to come up with ways to find synergies in a region and share services, as other institutions have already done and saved $1 million in two specific circumstances. So I will take a look at what has been proposed by Three Rivers when I get back to my office. Secondly, I'd just like to address the issue of the system office. This seems to be where people go to say, if you just cut the system office, we wouldn't have to do anything else. I'd just like to point out that, first of all, the increase in the budget for the system office this year is predominantly made up of salary increases that are due to unionized employees as a result of the CBAC agreement with the former governor. 5.5% increase to 95% of the personnel in our system. So the cost automatically has gone up. I'd also like to point out that 60% of the system office budget is spent on direct services to the community colleges.
Such as what?
Information technology. Human resources, we do all the collective bargaining, all of the grievances, all of the litigation resulting in collective bargaining. We do all of the accounting. We do all the accounts payable. We hold all of the licenses and the software licenses for community college information technology systems. And we hold a lot of other contracts for the community colleges where, if we didn't hold them, we would have each individual institution having their own contracts, which would cost more money. If we were to take all of the integrated services that we provide now and send them back to the community colleges, it would cost much more money, and there would not be a consistent approach across the system.
During your time as president of the Connecticut State Universities and Colleges, how much has the administrative office shrunk? I'm just curious in terms of personnel, if you're going to be asking for personnel cuts within the community colleges, how many people work in that office?
We have cut as part of the approach for the next fiscal year. We also have to come up with cuts as well. I don't have the specific numbers, with me here, but we have the number of people. When I first took over, we shrunk the office. The office has increased a little bit because what we've been doing is, as we prepare for the one college, I think as our accreditors told us a year ago, we need to look and behave like one college. So as we now have a vice president of enrollment management who is helping with a consistent enrollment approach across all 12 institutions, that position will go to the one college. The 3 regional presidents will go to the one college. So we have to structure ourselves at the community colleges in a way that our accreditors can approve us. So we have to look and act like one college before we move forward. But we have to cut from our own office. But I also will just caution that we have very few people in the system office that don't provide direct services to either the universities or the colleges.
Before we head to break, Edie did start her question listing proposed cuts at Three Rivers Community College. You said that you weren't aware of them yet. But when you hear that there are services that sound very much as student-facing services, so what is the process then? Is this something that you would not want to see? Would you suggest back to Three Rivers to maybe think of other ways to cut?
Well, first of all, I would suggest that we can continue to have the conversations as a region. Other regions are doing it, and I know that the region that Three Rivers is in has a process by which they can come together, all the campus leaders, and come up with proposals so that they don't have to maybe make some of these cuts. I don't know what the impact of these cuts are as I sit here today because I don't have all of the information, but I will get the information and I will weigh in.
Mark Ojakian is president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. You're listening to Where We Live. We're going to continue our discussion, take more of your phone calls at 860-275-7266. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. We're going to dig more into this plan to consolidate Connecticut's 12 community colleges into one single entity by 2023. What's your take? You can join us, 860-275-7266. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Today we're talking about Connecticut's higher education system, specifically its 4 state universities and 12 community colleges, as well as Charter Oak College. You can join us, 860-275-7266, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. In studio with me, Mark Ojakian, president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System. Mark's been on the show a few times now talking about the student's first plan, again, to consolidate the 12 community colleges into one single entity as a way to save money. This is something that the accrediting agency still has to give approval to. We're going to talk more about some of the reasons behind that consolidation in just a little bit. I wanted to take a call now. Let's go to Elena from Willimantic. Elena, tell us where you're a student and what's your take on this consolidation plan and some of the proposed changes within the community colleges system.
Yeah, I'm a student here at Eastern Connecticut State University. Personally, I think that the community college unification is a good idea. You can't keep 12 distinct community colleges alive and have them be so close to each other and not cooperate. Those students, traditional students, normal students who get out of high school, want to go to community college and then transfer, they need the resources and they need to have those options open to them to say, hey, I want to be a nursing major. I could go to Three Rivers College, but it's not really close to me. I should take classes at another community college that is closer to me, and I could transfer my credits, which is the goal of the community college consolidation, is to provide guided pathways for different majors, and so that they're easily transferable from community college to community college, from community college to university.
So, Elena, there are some parts of the proposal that you think are a good thing, but as vice chair of the Student Advisory Committee to the Board of Regents, also a student at Eastern, are there any concerns that you have about some of the proposed changes, and what are they?
Personally, I don't have any concerns. My only concern is coming from out of state, from Georgia, and having 12 community college in such a small state is a bit too much. I do know that not all of the community colleges are at their full capacity. And what's the best way to, keep them running, keep them alive? There's no way that you can shut down a community college. It's an extension of the community of who they are. You can't do that. So, making them one is the best idea. Is the best idea to cut the budget, to across the board create guided pathways. I know they're also including technology and all of this. The community colleges are really going to use technology to aid them in providing student services and revamping their facilities and things like that.
Well, thank you, Elena, again, for your call. So I'll go back to Mark Ojakian, Students First again. This plan to make a stronger system by changing up the leadership structure as well as how it operates. Elena brought up a point that not all of the 12 community colleges are operating at full capacity, but then she said that you can't close a community college because it's an extension of the community. If you weren't able to get approval from the accrediting agency to make these 12 community colleges into one single community college system, would that be then a proposal that would be on the table, that you'd have to close some of these colleges?
Well, I've made a commitment that I'm not looking to close community colleges. And by engaging in this initiative, you will see that financially, if we go forward with Students First, by 2022, you'll start to see our financial situation be in a surplus position and our reserves starting to be built up again. And if you don't, then within another year or 2 years, we're going to plow through our reserves, and then we're going to be at the risk of being insolvent. Our accreditors have already pointed out that 10 of our 12 community colleges are financially at risk. Financially at risk.
You said 10 of the 12?
10 of the 12. And so, and 9 of the 12 are at risk of not having enough student services to be successful. They're very concerned about the completion rates we talked about earlier. So if you don't engage in this effort, I may not propose closing a community college, but our accreditors will take a look and say, you don't have reserves. You're not in a financial position to stay open. As you know, across the country, institutions are closing and leaving students at risk. This proposal keeps access in place. All of the campuses, all of the satellite campuses stay open so that students who already have a difficult time going to their, what I'll call their home institution, don't have to travel somewhere else, because if they have to do that, they don't have the transportation to do it. They will not go, and they'll be left behind.
For a different perspective on the Student First plan, joining us now is Lois Amy, who's Director of Educational Technology at Norwalk Community College, also President of the Norwalk Community College Senate. Lois, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us, what are your main concerns with this consolidation plan?
Well, my concerns are the fact that consolidating us into a single college takes away the community in the community college. We can no longer serve our communities as we need to. We are located in an area of Connecticut that is much different from Connecticut. May be a small area, but it's a very diverse state. and what our needs down here and our students' needs and our community needs are much different from anywhere else. The people who have been running our master plan, quote-unquote master plan, have made statements about colleges that are closer to New York City have to focus more on ESL programs and math programs and English programs, and so we need to have the ability to tailor our programs to our students' needs. But I would like to, I'm a little confused about this funding issue on a couple of points. One, let's go to Achieve the Dream for the moment, where Mr. Ojakian said it was $65,000 per college. It's actually at least $78,000 per college, and it's a 3-year minimum commitment. So that's $234,000 per college. There are 4 of the community colleges, including Norwalk, were already members of Achieve the Dream. That would mean 8 new community colleges. That's over $1.8 million, and that doesn't include all of these conferences and this last kickoff meeting they had in Phoenix, where Norwalk was required to go, even though we had already been members of Achieve the Dream, and we were doing a lot of these things, but we were required to go to this kickoff thing and send people and pay money for it. So this is a huge drain on the community colleges.
So it sounds like you're saying that there are lots of other places that the system could cut instead of looking at consolidating services and changing how these campuses are structured, Lois?
Well, we're looking at, we just hired 3 regional presidents at $220,000 a year plus fringe benefits. That's over $1 million a year for these regional presidents. To do what? This has not been approved yet. We're still independently accredited colleges. And as far as the cuts at Three Rivers go, they've been asked to cut over $900,000, and so it's unfathomable to me that President Ojakian would not be aware of the impact of these cuts, that he wouldn't know how he has starved the colleges, and where exactly does he think the money is going to come from?
So I'm going to have Mark Ojakian. I'm going to have Mark Ojakian respond to you, Lois, here on Where We Live. Let's start first with what she brought up, which is the new leadership structure. So explain why under Students First there need to be 3 regional presidents, and then you have some capacity of chief executive officer. But with some of the hiring that has been done, I think some positions starting up July 1, some of these campuses are going to have these new CEOs, also with the acting president still on campus. Why so much overhead?
Well, where we have CEOs now, the acting president we only have CEOs where there's vacancies, and existing presidents have chose to retire. What I would say is we configured the new organization in a regional model to take better effect of a regional approach to providing services to be responsive to workforce. We've seen where we've had one president over 2 institutions. In 1 year, they've saved over $1 million in sharing certain services. We're not telling institutions how to do that, but by having a regional approach, we are encouraging campuses to work together. Now, some campuses are doing things better than other campuses. And I'm not going to go through each campus and say, check mark here, check mark there. What I'm going to say is that there's 12 campuses and 4 satellites that I'm very interested in seeing remain open so that communities still have colleges to send their students to. And that if we look at our financial picture, and you can't ignore the money in the long term. When this is fully implemented, we will save between $21 and $23 million a year based on not only our projections, but independent verification by the nonpartisan Office of Fiscal Analysis. Now, in the short term, we're going to have to make some sacrifices, in how we get there. But in the longer term, it's going to pay off.
You mentioned the savings, $23 million by 2023, but that's also based on a lot of assumptions that enrollment may improve, or that what happens if state funding decreases.
No, that's based on level state funding and
which is not a given. Level state funding is not a given.
It's not a given, and no enrollment increase. So we're not looking at new revenue. So those projections do not take into account the efforts we're engaging in terms of retention and in terms of new enrollment initiatives, which are going to bring more revenue into the system.
So in case I misspoke earlier, so there's 3 regional presidents that will be starting July 1?
They started July 1, correct.
Okay. And then some of the campuses have still presidents at the campus, like president of Assunantuck or president of Gateway Community College.
Right now, I believe we have 3 campuses where there are presidents who are still leading the campus, and all of the other institutions are led by chief executive officers.
So the chief executive officers make less than an president. And so I guess the question being, if there are regional presidents and some CEOs with the hope that you may hire other CEOs, why do we still need the presidents on these campuses? Because you think about all the money that's being paid out for these
because
positions.
this is a transition period. And so, change is hard. And during a transition, we're going to be in a position where we're going to have some of the existing structure in place. But as individuals leave positions, we are refilling those positions under the new model. We are very focused on the student success aspect of this initiative as well as the financial aspect of this initiative. And there is nothing in the initiative that removes the community from the community college. The foundation remains attached to the institution, separately run, separately designed in terms of what the dollars are going to be spent for. The programs are still going to be developed at the local level. We have groups. We have 400 people from the community colleges working across the system to look at our academic programming, to say, and this is faculty, what makes sense in terms of aligning programs so that if a student wants to go from campus A to campus B, they can do so seamlessly. Right now, that's not the case within our community colleges. So I'm moving this forward because I firmly believe that if we don't, as somebody who's responsible for the 55,000 students in the community college system, I'm not going to stand and point and say, you're doing great, you're going to stay open, you're not doing so good, close.
You can join our conversation, 860-275-7266. Louise is calling from New Britain. Louise, I understand that you are a professor at Central Connecticut State University. A lot of faculty have signed on or have given Mark Ojakian a no confidence vote. What's your take on this plan and some of the justifications for moving this model forward, as Mark Ojakian has explained?
Well, I'm calling as Vice President of the Connecticut State University American Association of University Professors, which means I represent the approximately 3,000 faculty of the 4 state universities. And from my position on the ground, I have yet to meet one faculty member who thinks students first is a good idea, in spite of anything Mr. Ojakian says about the 400 people participating. So from our perspective, a lot of faculty are afraid to speak up. Some think that they can try to work within the system to try to change the plan, but I don't know a single teacher who likes it. And this is among the university faculty who are in complete support of their community college colleagues. And I think that the recent no confidence vote, the petitions sort of speak to the fact that the faculty really don't think it's a good idea.
So, Louise, can I ask just quickly, if it's not a good idea, what are the alternatives?
Faculty members have come up with other plans that are actually regional plans. They've come up with many ideas about how to save money. They've done extensive research, written extensive op-ed pieces with detailed research about how more money is being spent than is necessary and how money could be saved. So I'm just a little concerned, and my question for Mark Ojakian is, why does he ignore the faculty assessment of this plan? And isn't this sort of dangerous at a period when, like, K through 12 teachers are striking throughout the country for many of the same reasons?
Well, thank you, Louise. Mark?
Well, I'd like to respond to a couple of points. First of all, I needed to make it clear once again that this initiative does not affect the universities at all. And so while I respect everybody's right to have an opinion, we are working very closely with our community college colleagues to make sure that this is a successful initiative. The second thing that I will say is there are people on the ground who are in full support of this initiative. And so I would encourage people to maybe get out more to campuses and talk to the full breadth of the campus community. I understand that there's people that are not in favor of this. I fully appreciate that, and everybody has a right to their opinion. And so this is a disagreement over the best path forward. What I will say is we rolled this out over 2 years ago. And to this point in time, we have not received another plan, fully comprehensive, financially analyzed plan to get us the $23 million in savings once this is fully implemented. There's been ideas floated around. People have asked us for more time to come up with a plan, and we have still not received any comprehensive plan. So I appreciate op-eds. I appreciate people offering suggestions about more solar panels and things that we're already doing. I do appreciate all of those ideas. And I do meet with a lot of faculty who come to my office, and we have very respectful conversations about the path forward. So this isn't, popularity contest. I didn't take this position, to be homecoming king. And so what I want to be able to do is to look the students in the face every commencement I go to at the community colleges and say, we did our best to make sure that you had an opportunity to achieve your dream.
Louise, I'll let you respond to Mark quickly.
I'm on the ground. I've talked to a lot of different people from the universities and the community colleges, and they object to things like the centralization, bureaucratic control of curriculum, taking faculty out of the process of determining curriculum, outsourcing decisions to non-academic paid consultants. And there's just a sense that the faculty expertise is not respected. I think it's a dangerous thing to do at this time.
Well, Louise, thank you for your call. Mark, you mentioned that it's not a popularity contest. You're in an appointed position. I believe your contract's up in 2020. Again, this plan has not received any approval yet from the accrediting agency, has it?
First of all, we have not applied for anything to our accreditors. Our plan is to be a fully integrated institution by 2023. We just went and gave a progress report to our accreditors in April. I fully anticipate being invited back next year. I'm sure this is a process, so we're going to have to modify as we go along. But what I really think is important to understand is the conversation we need to have needs to center around facts. We're not outsourcing faculty decision-making efforts to consultants. We're not arbitrarily making decisions on curriculum. The faculty from the campuses are meeting similar to when they did the Transfer and Articulation Pathway Program, which was not a favorite of some folks who have called in. We are making every effort to be as inclusive and participatory and transparent as possible. But if somebody wants to give me another plan that saves $23 million in the next 3 years, I've been open to receiving that, as well as has the Board of Regents.
So you said you haven't applied yet to the accrediting agency, but you will need approval.
Correct.
Before this happens in 2023.
Correct. The process is still ongoing. And we're working very closely with the commission and the commission staff to determine the best path forward. Is it another substantive change request, or do we apply as a new institution? I mean, these decisions are being considered now by the accreditors and by us, but we have a plan in place to get us to a fully integrated institution by 2023, with our target being increasing student success at the community colleges and also establishing a more stable financial model into the future.
I wanted to get another perspective from the community colleges before we head to break. Del Cummings is on the line, science professor at Naugatuck Valley Community College, also chair of the Faculty Advisory Committee to the Board of Regents. Del, as you hear Mark talk about, again, the reasons behind Students First and also answering some of the criticisms of the plan, I mean, what's your take as someone on the ground working with students and also providing some recommendations to the Board of Regents?
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I think the efforts to improve completion rates, which are certainly a focus of Students First, is money well spent. Obviously, any additional funds spent anywhere is going to get a lot of attention. However, if we can double the completion rate from 16% to 32%, the benefits to the state per dollar would be enormous. So I support that. In terms of the faculty's stance, it's mixed. There's campuses, and I'm talking about the community colleges now, where the feeling is that everything is fine, and so there's an opposition to change. There are other campuses that have problems, and those faculty oftentimes support the changes. And I should mention that the plan will impact local administration far more than the faculty, and so if the faculty at a campus whose administration is not supportive of the change comes out and supports Students First, that's risky for their career. The local administration controls their promotion, or even if they get to keep their job. So sometimes the statistics on faculty's stance on this get distorted a bit. And that, again, I don't want to minimize the situations where campuses are doing well and people are concerned about things getting screwed up.
Well, Del Cummings, I want to thank you for giving us your perspective. The hour is running away from us, but again, with me today is Mark Ojakian, who's president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System, as we look again at plans to change how higher education operates, including consolidating 12 community colleges into one single entity. We're going to continue our discussion after a short break. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. This is Where We Live. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel here on Where We Live with Mark Ojakian, president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System. I want to take a quick call. Lauren D. from New Haven. Lauren, what's your take?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I'm someone who took a very long time to oppose consolidation, but I think that in Connecticut we seem to be the state that has faulty foundations, and there are faulty foundations with this process, and that has mainly to do with not first starting with governance and empowering faculty. I'm one of those 400 faculty who are working on multiple committees, and I don't think that the sort of reports of that work in any way relay the opposition that exists. And it's not a few people. It's fairly widely held opposition, but much of the opposition, at least in my case, has to do with the process. I was the co-chair of that transfer and articulation program that Mr. Ojakian referenced from 2012 to 2017, work that I'm really proud of and a program that I'm really proud of. But to use that as a model for new governance, to say that all of these programs are going to somehow be developed, that prerequisites are going to be aligned, that courses are going to be aligned, using a model that is very limited to a very specific program is part of the false foundation.
Well, thank you.
There is not.
Thank you, Lauren, from your perspective from New Haven. Mark Ojakian, again, lots of critiques from people who are working on these campuses who are worried about some of these changes at hand. I mean, what can you say as this is still moving forward?
It's still moving forward, and we're going to continue to work with everybody. I appreciate Lauren's commitment to working, on multiple committees. It's not easy to be a faculty member or a staff person and then give your time to do these kinds of things. But it's really important work, because if we're going to make sure that all of our community colleges continue to improve student success, and we're going to make sure that we're on a much more financially stable ground into the future, we're going to have to change. And I know change is very difficult. And I know some people are disappointed in what they see as a flawed process. But we are doing everything we can to make sure that this is inclusive, participatory, and as transparent as possible. And not only is responsible to the students, but remember, we get tax dollars from the state. So we have to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars as well.
Mark, you talked about change being difficult. The Board of Regents was a system that former Governor Daniel Malloy put in place. There's a lot of critiques that is the Board of Regents the right way to be running the higher ed system in our state?
I continue to believe it absolutely is. I continue to believe that putting the community colleges and the state universities in Charter Oak under one umbrella governance structure is the best governance model for these institutions. So I continue to stand by what we did in 2011.
Before we have to end the show, we did want to talk about what the Connecticut General Assembly passed, this idea of debt-free college, allowing students to attend Connecticut community colleges for free. You've been fairly quiet about this proposal. Is this a good idea?
Well, I think in concept, and as a matter of public policy, it is. I testified in front of the legislature that as a matter of public policy, I think all public education should be free. I was concerned about diverting resources from campus advisors, that we needed more resources on our campuses to make sure our students completed, those students that were currently in the pipeline. And so I have been a little bit quiet, but we worked with the leadership of the committee to make sure that the legislation that passed was a piece of legislation that could work. As you know, it relies on a revenue stream from a still undeveloped lottery source, the iLottery. But in the budget, the legislature did put a provision in that if that iLottery does not get up and running, that the governor has to make some midterm adjustments to his budget to give us the revenue that it will take. It's projected $6 million for academic year 20 and $10 million for academic year 21. So we intend to move this forward in a very aggressive way. You'll see a lot of marketing around it beginning in the fall. It's the law, and we will make sure that it's successful as it can be.
So this would be up and running in 2020 if this new lottery, of course, the state law thinking about it's a form of gambling to help pay for this particular debt-free proposal. Again, Mark Ojakian's here, president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System. When we think about a debt-free college, this would be one of those last dollar programs. So the students that are applying for Pell Grants and whatnot, the state would pick up the rest.
That is correct. And what I tried to point out to the legislature during the session was that 60% of our students already go for free, and 70% go for 75% free. And if we're going to be talking about equity at any point from now into the future, I would have preferred to have put more resources into those students that are already receiving full Pell. Because full Pell doesn't mean you have childcare, you can buy books, you don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to go to school. And I would prefer to see dollars spent on that population.
Meanwhile, how's enrollment looking for the fall, Mark?
Well, we won't know in the community colleges until much later. Students tend not to enroll until later, but we have a marketing campaign that's starting today for the fall, and I'll come back and tell you.
Well, we look forward to having you back. We know our listeners like to speak with you as well. Mark Ojakian, president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System here on Where We Live. Thanks again for coming in.
Always happy to be here.
Today's show produced by senior producer Lydia Brown. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Thanks for listening.